So Joyce, if you have the means, I highly recommend it. What's up guys, DRJ here, and today I wanted to talk to you guys essentially about accessibility in favor of basically gameplay and depth, and this alongside where games have come from, where they're at now, and where it looks like they might be going, which I think is really exciting. So the idea where I wanted to make this video in the first place basically stems from, I think the final nail in the coffin for wanting to do something like this was actually both playing DayZ, seeing some of the titles that are coming out for E3, looking at the feedback obviously that Diablo 3 has been getting, and obviously the CoD backlash as always. So what I want to do is start off just a brief recap, talk about games. I'll do a few things. I might mention things that some of you guys have heard before if you've been long-time subscribers, so I apologize if you feel like I'm repeating myself. I've played first-person shooters for a long time, competed very heavily in them, upper echelon of those games, so arguably, well, not arguably, the best teams in the North America anyway for Battlefield Vietnam. When playing FPSs and games that are along those kind of lines, the focus was on trying to get as much out of those games as possible. The focus was on gameplay. It was on trying to make the best games possible. Now you look back and it's wrong to assume that those games are perfect and that they were as good as they can possibly ever be or anything like that. But what's interesting is that, like I said, they might have been starting from, well, they were starting from ground zero. In order to make an omelet, I guess you have to break a few eggs. But the focus was on gameplay. It was on creating great games that people can enjoy. And then what ended up happening was they ended up with some type of atmosphere where, for a variety of different reasons, basically good players were, pooping all over the bad players. Nobody wanted to play because, well, a lot of people didn't want to play because very good players were very ruined the fun for people that weren't nearly as good. And there was, like I said, galaxies and universe apart from somebody who was really good from somebody who wasn't. So then you end up with titles today like CoD, and then now Diablo 3. And it's interesting because that's sort of, obviously I'm biased because I have the most experience and pleasure. I really enjoy playing FPS games. But at least in my opinion, it seemed like that movement of creating a game that was accessible, which in the case of, say, something like CoD, more of skill equalizers to make it more enjoyable for everybody else. So it lowers the skill threshold, and as a result, more people are able to enjoy the game more often because now instead of one person getting a 20-to-1 KD and the majority of people running around at basically a negative KD, you have everybody who can no longer get, nobody can now get above a 3-to-1 KD or something like that. And it's interesting, it's one of the ways to actually measure, in my opinion, it's just an easy way to sort of a litmus test to see what kind of skill equalizers are out there in any given FPS game. You look at average KDs, and if the best of the best players are running 2 or 3-to-1 KDs consistently, something's probably wrong. So anyway, that was a little more on FPSs than I should have mentioned, but like I said, they're my passion. So then what happens is, I think, like I said, CoD 4 started off something where, like I said, more of an accessible game for a variety of reasons, things like radar, instant respawn, verticality, lots of entrances and exits, makes it very difficult to peer around a corner, know if somebody's there, very guns that shoot very fast, kill very quickly, things like that. But then when you start to enter into this mindset, with the takeoff of CoD, and then you get, CoD Modern Warfare 3, highest grossing piece of media all time, what is it, $1 billion, 16 days, beat out Avatar, which was $1 billion in 17 days. You start entering into this idea that, not making great games for great games, it's making games as accessible as possible, and if you can fit, and fitting different elements into there to attract people to them, but what you end up with is, man, for the lack of a better term, like a really nice looking piece of dog doo-doo. Which is interesting because what ends up happening is it takes a longer time for, I think, the masses to catch up, but over time people are slowly starting to get upset more and more at CoD, but Modern Warfare 3 is still better than any of them, so there is that. But what's really cool is Diablo 3 just came out and has been getting all sorts of horrific backlash, and a lot of it is very articulate, very to the point. They're breaking down, this is why I'm upset, this is what Diablo 2 had, this is what D3 doesn't have, blah, 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 blah. And you can see the graphs. People are posting stats based on Xfire or Steam or whatever it is, showing the amount of players that have dropped off, showing the amount of public games. And it's really hard to argue with, good quality data like that. And a lot of people, the argument obviously for D3 is, once again, they made it accessible. They're looking to create a game that works for consoles as well, and it doesn't have that depth and that gameplay that its predecessor did, still does, because people are still playing it. So people are very upset. What's cool with Diablo 3 is, I think, one of the reasons why it's so obvious as to how people feel about that particular game is because there's that centralized forum. So with a lot of the other titles like CoD or even something like, say, Mass Effect, if you look for the forums for, like, say, Mass Effect multiplayer, it feels like they've hidden them intentionally because they're so hard to get to. There's no one super user-friendly, popular place to go to post. So it's the information builds, it accrues much more quickly when you're looking at something like D3 with those centralized forums. Really, really cool. Not so much for the Blizzard team, but... And then it's interesting because, like I said, you've got these sort of this generation of gaming games accessible and in favor of gameplay depth, and then you have games coming out like The Last of Us. There was a fairly successful I Am Alive indie title on Xbox Live, and then DayZ. DayZ is one of the most popular things I'm doing right now. One of the attractions to titles like these survival titles, is because they're about as polar opposite as you can get from the type of situation that we've been in for the last, I don't know, between 5 to 10 years, maybe closer to 10. They are, it's one life or very few lives. It's all about maximizing the minimum amount of resources you have at any given time. And it's very much so the opposite of an instant respawn, toss your frag X3, laugh, turn off your Xbox 20 minutes later. And I think it's really, really cool. It's very, very exciting. I think that the pendulum is starting to shift the other way. It just takes time. I think the masses are starting to realize, I've mentioned 1,000 times before, the whole King for a Day thing and CoD, when they realize that doing well doesn't mean anything if every single person is doing well. People are slowly starting to catch on to things like that. Obviously D3 has exploded into all sorts of criticism, complaints about the game. People are either very unsatisfied with it for a variety of reasons, and I think this is great. I love that dialogue. I love that central place where people can talk, and I think that we need more dialogue. That's why I'm doing videos like this. It's why I have my YouTube channel in the first place. It's what excites me about doing this. That's what I want to do, is I want to change, I want to make games better with getting you and I and all of our friends to talk and figure out why we like what we like and why we don't like what we don't like. And that affects the dev, especially with all the social media we have, Twitter, Facebook, people twittering things out, or all sorts of really, really cool things. So that's why I'm doing this. So like I said, it looks like the pendulum is starting to shift, which is really cool. Some really neat titles that are coming out, like I said, that are actually about as opposite as you can get from the whole idea of accessibility. So we'll have to see what happens. Maybe they'll be terrible, maybe they'll be horrific, but I like to think that that things are starting to change for the better. And if not, either way, we still continue to create dialogue and talk about them when they come out. So as always, comments, criticisms, critiques, let me know what you guys think. I will post this on Picky Pants and let you see if you guys want to have more in-depth dialogue. And then two, DayZ, I'm having a lot of trouble joining servers, so if you guys see my videos and like those, great. But please, be very hesitant about rushing out and buying that, because a lot of people are having a lot of difficulty with that mod right now. So just want to put that out there. Thank you very much.